Welcome to Monaco Mindset. This is a channel where we explore the world's most exclusive lifestyles, the psychology of success, wealth creation, luxury living, and really the habits that separate the extraordinary from the ordinary.
Right, exactly. And if you're passionate about entrepreneurship, investing, financial freedom, and just wrapping your head around the mindset of the ultra-successful, well, you're definitely in the right place. We really dive deep into how global wealth actually operates.
Yeah, we do. So please take a second to subscribe if you haven't already. It really helps us bring you these deep dives.
For sure. But for now, let's just jump right into the main discussion.
Imagine paying, $110 million for an airplane. And the main selling point isn't, a gold-plated bathroom or a master bedroom or even a private cinema.
Right.
The main selling point, the thing that actually gets that massive wire transfer sent, is the air pressure.
Yeah, the air pressure. It sounds insane, but it's true.
It is crazy. But right now, there is this invisible arms race happening among the global elite. And they aren't competing over yachts or mansions anymore. They are literally trying to buy the one thing that cannot be manufactured: time.
Which is a complete inversion of how, most of the world views resources.
Right, because for us, money is the finite thing.
Exactly. When you look at your bank account, you see a fluctuating number.
Yeah.
You pay rent, it drops. You get paid, it rises.
Yeah.
Money is fundamentally a renewable resource. The ceiling is technically infinite.
Well, there's always more money out there somewhere.
But time. You cannot earn another yesterday. You cannot, hustle your way into a 25-hour day. Time is the ultimate finite boundary.
Welcome to this custom-tailored deep dive, designed specifically for you. We are pulling apart a massive stack of sources today to figure out how the ultra-wealthy are literally restructuring reality to buy back the clock.
And we've got some fascinating data to go through.
We really do. We're looking at real estate market reports out of Monaco, extreme biohacking daily routines, the jaw-dropping engineering specs of private aviation, global wealth sizing models from Knight Frank and Cerulli Associates, and deep sociological analyses on the evolution of luxury itself.
The mission here is to synthesize all of this data into one cohesive understanding of how the world operates at the absolute highest echelons of wealth.
Because it's a completely different world.
It is. When a person reaches a certain threshold of capital, what the financial industry categorizes as an ultra-high net worth individual, their fundamental relationship with the physical world just changes.
Right.
The ultimate luxury is no longer accumulation. It is total, frictionless delegation.
Okay, let's unpack this. Because if you have functionally infinite money but strictly finite time, the most immediate, practical way to balance that equation is to go out and literally buy other people's time to add to your own.
Exactly. You buy their hours so you don't have to spend yours.
And I think we all understand the basic concept of outsourcing. You hire a landscaper, you save 3 hours on a Saturday. Simple.
Sure, that's the entry level.
Right. But the structural reports we have from talent gurus and the wealth management insights from Cerulli Associates, they paint a picture that goes way, way beyond hiring a nanny. They break down these household staff structures into distinct net worth tiers, and the scale is just staggering.
Staggering is the right word, because it scales from essentially a gig economy model all the way up to a multinational corporation.
Which is wild to think about for a single family.
Oh, totally. So let's look at the entry-level tier of this data, which they define as $5 million to $25 million in net worth. At this level, you typically see 1 to 3 staff members. It's largely outsourced. You've got a cleaning service, maybe a part-time nanny, a dedicated accountant.
Pretty standard wealthy household stuff.
Right. But the data reveals a massive friction point here. This tier has the highest staff turnover rate, sitting at 42% annually.
Wow, 42%. That's almost half the staff leaving every year.
Exactly.
And that's because they are still acting as the managers.
Right.
The wealthy individual or their spouse is still dealing with the mental load of scheduling, hiring, and, coordinating these gig workers.
Yes, exactly.
So they have bought some physical help, but they haven't truly bought back their cognitive bandwidth. They are still dealing with the friction of life.
That's spot on. Now, compare that to Tier 5. This is the billionaire and institutional wealth level, $1 billion and above.
The real heavy hitters.
Right. At this stage, the household no longer functions like a home. It operates like a mid-sized corporation. We are looking at 25 to 90 full-time staff members.
90 people just to run a person's personal life.
Yep, with an annual payroll running anywhere from $12 million to $70 million a year, just for the domestic and lifestyle staff.
That is just, I mean, the hyper-specialization of these roles is what really caught my attention in the reading. You aren't just hiring a house manager.
Oh, no, not at all.
You are hiring a director of residences who functions essentially as a chief operating officer for a global real estate portfolio.
Right. They're not just making sure the lawn is mowed. They are running multiple properties across different continents.
And beneath them, you have a multi-layered chief of staff structure. There's a principal chief of staff, a deputy, and even regional chiefs of staff, depending on which continent the principal is currently standing on.
And it gets even more granular. The sources outline 24/7 in-house executive protection details.
Like private secret service.
Basically, yeah.
Right.
This isn't just a guard at a gate. It's a rotating team of 6 to 25 highly trained agents managing advanced intelligence, cybersecurity, physical routing.
And they employ estate vets, right? Dedicated solely to their private ranches.
Yes. Full-time veterinarians just for their own animals. And they hire full-time wine directors whose only job is to manage, curate, and transport cellars that exceed 5,000 bottles.
I mean, imagine your only job is flying around the world making sure a billionaire's Pinot Noir doesn't get too warm.
It's a real job, and that doesn't even touch the maritime cruise, you know? A yacht over 30 meters requires a permanent year-round staff of anywhere from 5 to 50 people just to keep the vessel in a state of constant readiness, even if the owner isn't there.
Okay, wait, I have to push back here.
Sure.
Because for you and me, managing one contractor to fix a bathroom is a headache.
Oh, absolutely.
So doesn't managing 90 people create a massive HR nightmare? Like, if the entire goal of this exercise is to buy back time, how does taking on the burden of a $70 million payroll and a small army of employees actually achieve that? It sounds exhausting.
It would be exhausting if they were actually managing it, but they aren't.
They aren't.
No. This is where the mechanics of the family office come into play. The wealthy utilize sophisticated corporate management tools to completely insulate themselves from the machinery. The most critical tool mentioned in the organizational literature we looked at is the RCI matrix.
RCI. R-A-C-I.
Right. That stands for responsible, accountable, consulted, and informed.
Okay, break that down mechanically for me. How does a corporate spreadsheet basically buy a billionaire more time in their living room?
Okay, imagine a pipe bursts in the winter at the Billionaires' Aspen estate.
Okay, it's disaster.
Right. In a normal household, you, the owner, panic. You spend an hour calling plumbers, you negotiate the price, you manage the schedule, you deal with the water damage, you lose half your day or more.
Yeah, that's a ruined weekend for sure.
But in a Tier 5 family office using a RCI matrix, the system absorbs the shock completely. The local estate manager is the R, responsible. They physically call the plumber. The global director of residences is the A, accountable. They ensure the repair fits within the quarterly maintenance budget. The chief of staff is the I, informed. They get a one-line memo in a weekly brief.
Or what about the billionaire?
The billionaire isn't even on the chart for this event. They never even know the pipe burst. The matrix acts as a literal firewall for their attention.
Wow. So they only make high-level, definitive decisions.
Exactly.
They wake up and say, I want to ski in Aspen tomorrow.
Yeah.
And this entire 90-person organism just executes it flawlessly. The pipe is already fixed. The fridge is stocked with their specific dietary requirements. The skis are waxed.
Which is precisely why the Cerulli Associates data notes a massive pivot in the wealth management industry.
How so?
Well, financial firms are rapidly expanding into lifestyle and concierge services because managing a billionaire's stock portfolio is no longer enough to win their business.
Anyone can manage the money at that level.
Right. The ultimate value add is providing comprehensive structural time-saving solutions across their entire existence.
So they've engineered their immediate environment to save them hours a day at home.
Right.
But what happens when they have to leave the house? I mean, you can have all the staff in the world, but if you're stuck on the tarmac at JFK or standing in a customs line, the world's most finite resource is just slipping away.
And that physical friction is exactly what drives the extreme evolution of global mobility.
The private jets.
Exactly. The Knight Frank Wealth Report outlines a massive shift toward what they call the dip-in, dip-out lifestyle.
Dip in, dip out.
Yeah. The traditional model of wealth was having a primary sprawling mansion where you spent, 8 months of the year.
Right, the family estate.
But that model is dead at the ultra-high net worth level. Today's elite maintain multi-jurisdictional footprints. They are completely untethered from traditional borders.
You know, I keep seeing these viral videos of seemingly empty private jets flying incredibly short distances, and I always assumed it was just a social media flex, like someone just wanting to post a picture on Instagram.
A lot of people think that. But the flight data in the Knight Frank report shows it's a structural shift.
Right. They tracked specific private jet corridors and found massive spikes.
Yeah, flights from Nantucket to New York were up 192%.
That's almost triple.
Right. Milan to Paris up 66%. This isn't travel in the way you or I plan a vacation. This is a commute.
A daily commute across countries. And to execute a commute at that scale, the vehicle itself has to evolve past the constraints of commercial aviation.
Absolutely. Because even an international first-class ticket is built on compromise.
You're still subject to airline hubs, commercial flight schedules, and, the physical toll of commercial cabin altitude.
Exactly. The highest tier of private aviation is about eliminating every single one of those compromises to buy back hours and sometimes literally days of biological productivity.
Which brings us back to that $110 million airplane I mentioned at the start of the deep dive. Let's look at the actual physics and engineering of these machines because it is fascinating.
It really is.
The baseline for this tier is something like the Gulfstream G700. It's a $75 million jet that can fly nonstop from New York to Singapore. You buy that plane to bypass layovers and fuel stops. But the Gulfstream is just the entry point.
Yeah, that's just the starter jet. The real shift happens when you move into the commercial to private conversions, like the Boeing 777X business jet, which costs over $100 million.
The 777, that's a massive plane.
It's a wide-body commercial airliner designed to seat 400 people, stripped completely bare for the use of one principal and their guests. You have 3,000 square feet of usable floor space.
That is bigger than most houses.
Easily.
But the Airbus ACJ220 is where the hidden mechanics of buying time really show up. The standout feature isn't the square footage, it's the pressurization system.
This is the key.
For you and me, a standard commercial flight is pressurized to an altitude of about 8,000 feet. That is why you get off a long international flight feeling dehydrated, bloated, and exhausted.
Your body has been working overtime for 12 hours in a low-oxygen, high-altitude environment.
Right. But the Airbus ACJ220, however, is pressurized to 6,000 feet, or even lower depending on the flight profile.
And the engineering required to achieve that is immense.
You can't just flip a switch to change the pressure.
No, you need a much stronger fuselage to handle the increased pressure differential between the inside of the cabin and the vacuum of the atmosphere outside. And you need significantly more powerful air compressors.
And why spend tens of millions of dollars to do that? Because that drop in cabin altitude is literally a biological time machine.
Yes.
Lower cabin altitude drastically reduces physiological fatigue. It means the billionaire can fly for 14 hours, step off the plane in Dubai, and immediately walk into a high-stakes board meeting with absolute cognitive clarity.
They don't need 48 hours to recover from jet lag. They have used capital to purchase biological resilience.
It's just wild. And if we look at the absolute apex of this engineering, we find the VIP Airbus A380. The billion-dollar flying palace.
Oh, the A380.
A commercial A380 has 2 full passenger decks. In the private, sovereign wealth level versions, we see installations of master suites, grand pianos, solid marble bathrooms, and even a garage in the cargo hold for armored vehicles.
Which is an absolute nightmare from an engineering perspective.
Right, because in aviation, putting a solid marble bathtub on an airplane is like asking a Formula One engineer to build a race car out of lead.
Exactly. Weight is the ultimate enemy of flight.
Every pound of marble requires exponentially more fuel to lift, and every installation has to be perfectly balanced and certified to withstand extreme turbulence. It highlights how unlimited resources force engineers to solve problems that shouldn't even exist.
Right. Nobody in human history needed to figure out how to safely fly a marble bathtub at 500 miles an hour until a billionaire decided they absolutely refused to compromise their morning routine just because they happened to be over the Atlantic Ocean.
It's so absurd. But this total elimination of physical friction creates an incredible paradox. These individuals possess the hardware to live anywhere on Earth seamlessly. They have infinite global space at their fingertips.
True.
Yet when we look at the real estate data, and where they actually anchor their legal and financial lives, they overwhelmingly choose to confine themselves in incredibly dense, highly constrained microstates.
The Monaco paradox.
Yes. This blew my mind when I was going through the Knight Frank real estate insights. Monaco is tiny. It is 2.08 square kilometers.
It's incredibly small.
To put that in perspective for you, the listener, it is significantly smaller than Central Park in New York City. Yet they have squeezed over 38,000 people into this space. It is the most densely populated sovereign state in the world.
And the demographic density is even more extreme. Over 30% of those residents are millionaires. The concentration of wealth is unparalleled globally.
So the analytical question is, why do people with the ability to live literally anywhere choose to live on top of each other?
The answer is that taxation is a direct drain on the capital that buys their time. Monaco famously levies zero income tax and zero capital gains tax on its residents.
But the physical trade-off is almost comical. We reviewed documentary footage of the real estate market there, and there was a wealthy expat paying £1,300 a month to live in a studio apartment the size of 2 parking spaces.
Oh yeah, the ones where the bed folds out over the desk.
He literally had his furniture on wheels just so he could roll his desk out of the way to unfold his bed. And this is right across the street from France, where you could buy a beautiful, sprawling villa for a fraction of the cost.
And for the ultra-rich actually buying property there, the Knight Frank data shows average resale prices hitting $51,967 per square meter.
It's completely detached from reality.
And the demand is so high and the space is so limited that they are literally building new land out of the ocean.
Right, the Mariterra project.
Yes, the Mariterra Land Reclamation Project. It's a €2 billion engineering feat just to extend the coastline. And the prices for those new super prime developments are surpassing €100,000 per square meter.
Okay, so I have to ask about the psychology here. Why squeeze into a tiny Monaco apartment or pay $100 million for a penthouse with a neighbor right through the wall when you could buy a massive private island in the Caribbean for the exact same price?
It's a valid question.
It feels like trading infinite freedom for a gilded, solitary confinement cell.
Because for this demographic, proximity is efficiency. Monaco isn't just a tax haven. It is a hyper-concentrated network.
Oh, right.
The highest tier of global deal-making, wealth management, and social capital exchange doesn't happen on Zoom. It happens on a 5-minute walk down the street to the yacht club.
So you're paying for access as much as a tax break.
Exactly. But more importantly, we have to look at the legal mechanics outlined in the nomad capitalist source. These individuals are not trapped in Monaco.
Right, they use territorial tax residencies.
Yeah.
Explain how that actually works mechanically, because I think a lot of people don't understand how you can just opt out of taxes.
So most countries tax based on physical presence. If you live there for more than 183 days a year, you pay their taxes. Monaco acts as the legal and financial anchor. They establish their residency there, which shields their global income from capital gains.
But thanks to those aviation assets we just discussed, they don't actually sit in that tiny apartment all year.
Not at all. They're constantly moving. They spend 3 months in Monaco, 2 months in London, a month in Dubai, using golden visas to maintain legal access without ever triggering tax residency in those heavier taxed nations.
Oh, wow.
The airplane is the missing link that makes the Monaco tax strategy viable. They are optimizing their financial timeline, ensuring that governments aren't seizing the resources they need to fund their frictionless lives.
So they've engineered their environment to save them hours a day. They fly at 6,000 feet to save days of jet lag. They've restructured their citizenship to protect the money that buys the time.
That's the formula.
But here's the catch. They are hoarding all this extra time, but the biological clock is still ticking. What good is saving an extra 10 hours a week if you still age, get sick, and pass away at 80?
And that is the existential panic right there.
That realization that the ultimate boundary cannot be bribed, that is what gave birth to the transformation economy.
This is a major sociological shift heavily analyzed in the reports from Knight Frank and EHL Insights. The traditional model of luxury was accumulation. It was having the rarest diamond, the fastest car, the biggest house.
Showing off what you have.
Right. But as capital reaches critical mass, the ultra-wealthy are shifting their focus from accumulation to optimization. They aren't just trying to buy more time in their day. They are trying to literally buy more time on Earth.
And no one embodies this more intensely or more publicly than tech billionaire Brian Johnson.
Oh, definitely.
The Times of India detailed his blueprint protocol. He is spending roughly $2 million a year on an extreme, data-driven quest to physically reverse his biological age.
$2 million a year just on his body.
And he currently claims his heart acts like a 37-year-old's and his lungs function like an 18-year-old's.
The routine is punishing, though. It fundamentally redefines what a luxury lifestyle actually looks like. He has a strict 8:30 p.m. bedtime to ensure restorative sleep. And he wakes up at 5 a.m. and undergoes a 5-hour regimen before most people have even checked their email.
5 hours of pure biological maintenance. Let's look at the mechanics of what he's actually doing, because it's not just a jog and some vitamins.
Far from it.
He starts under 10,000 lux of morning light to perfectly calibrate his circadian rhythm. He drinks a longevity mix full of specific peptides, collagen, and creatine. He does an hour-long hybrid workout, but then the heavy biohacking machinery kicks in. He spends 20 minutes in a 200-degree dry sauna. Then he uses intermittent hyperoxia training, or IHHT.
And the mechanics of IHHT are fascinating. He breathes through a mask that rapidly alternates between providing air with very low oxygen levels, simulating high altitude, and then immediately switching to very high oxygen levels.
What does that actually do?
Well, this extreme fluctuation creates intense stress on the mitochondria. It forces the weaker cells to die off and the stronger cells to replicate. It is essentially doing high-intensity interval training on a cellular level without moving a single muscle.
Wow. And then he spends 45 minutes inside a hyperbaric oxygen therapy chamber at 2 atmospheres of pressure. Why? Because the ambient pressure literally forces oxygen to dissolve directly into his blood plasma.
Right, penetrating deep into tissues that normally don't receive high blood flow, accelerating cellular repair.
He tracks over 100 different biomarkers constantly. He is applying the exact same relentless, data-driven engineering mindset used to build a billion-dollar tech company directly to his own organs.
And the EHL Insights report notes that this is the apex of the transformation economy. Brian Johnson's biological age reversal is the new ultimate luxury good.
It's a shift from conspicuous consumption showing off what you own to what we might call inconspicuous optimization, privately perfecting what you are.
That's a great way to put it.
And it's not just a solo pursuit for eccentric tech founders. Entire industries and social spaces are pivoting to serve this specific demand for health and longevity.
We see that with Tramp Health in London.
Yes, Tramp. For decades, Tramp was an infamous, incredibly exclusive nightclub where rock stars like The Who's Keith Moon literally smashed chandeliers. It was the epicenter of toxic, glamorous excess.
If you partied there, you made sure everyone knew it.
Right. And now, they're completely gutting it to open a 16,000 square foot facility in Mayfair dedicated entirely to preventative health.
They're replacing the champagne rooms with clinical spaces for IV nutrient drips, hyperbaric oxygen, and targeted red light therapy. It's a movement they call healthy hedonism.
Healthy hedonism.
Yeah. The social currency of the elite has shifted entirely. It used to be about showing how much you could consume, how much damage your body could take, and still function. Now, status is defined by how perfectly you can preserve and optimize your biological timeline.
But if IV drips and saunas are the day-to-day maintenance, what happens when you want to ensure your biological timeline against systemic collapse? Like, what is the ultimate insurance policy on human life?
The doomsday bunker.
The bunker. And we aren't talking about the cold, concrete, canned bean boxes of the Cold War. Realtor.com reported on the airy doomsday bunker. This is a $300 million facility that extends 20 stories underground.
The architecture of survival has been completely gentrified.
That's wild.
These facilities are designed to offer absolute protection from global catastrophe without requiring the billionaire to compromise their luxury lifestyle for a single second. They feature AI-powered medical suites that can autonomously run diagnostics and connect members to global specialists around the clock.
The detail that really stood out to me in that report was the inclusion of SCIF-compliant environments.
Oh, the SCIFs, right?
For anyone listening who's unfamiliar, SCIF stands for Sensitive Compartmented Information Facility. It's military-grade room shielding used by intelligence agencies to prevent electronic eavesdropping.
Like in the Pentagon.
Exactly. So why does a billionaire need a SCI in a survival bunker? Because they want to ensure that even during a global financial meltdown or a localized catastrophe, they can continue conducting highly secure global business.
Their timeline and their wealth accumulation cannot be interrupted by something as trivial as the apocalypse.
Exactly. And to alleviate the psychological burden of being buried alive, at the bottom of this 20-story subterranean fortress, There is an indoor pool featuring incredibly high-resolution virtual skylines that mimic the time of day and weather outside.
So you don't even feel like you're underground.
They are literally purchasing an insurance policy on their future time, ensuring that their existence continues uninterrupted in total comfort, regardless of what happens to the surface of the Earth.
So if biological optimization, time, and absolute survival are the new ultimate luxuries, what happens to traditional luxury goods?
Right. If the billionaire is focused on his hyperbaric chamber and his subterranean virtual skyline, who is buying the designer handbags, the flashy sports cars, and the logo-covered clothing.
To understand this transition, we have to look back at the sociologist Thorstein Veblen. He coined the term conspicuous consumption in the late 19th century. He observed the leisure class displaying their wealth through extravagant, visible purchases.
Showing off again.
Right. For a long time, Veblen goods items whose demand actually increases as their price increases simply because they effectively signal high status ruled the market.
A classic example is a diamond watch. It doesn't tell time better than a $10 digital watch, but its high price is the feature, not a bug. But the modern era, with intense globalization and mass manufacturing changed the rules. We saw the rise of the mastige effect, mass prestige.
Exactly. Luxury brands realized they could make billions by creating entry-level product lines. Keychains, sunglasses, smaller bags, cosmetics.
So the middle class could buy a piece of the luxury dream.
Yep. But the Jeel Bajaj Institute paper points out that this democratization created a fatal paradox for the ultra-wealthy. If everyone in the airport lounge has the same designer logo on their bag, the logo no longer signals exclusive, untouchable wealth. The exclusivity of the physical good is completely diluted.
So the true ultra-wealthy pivot again. They abandon the loud logos and move toward quiet luxury.
Right, no visible branding.
They buy unbranded, incredibly high-quality items like a $5,000 plain cashmere sweater that are recognizable only to their specific peers. But more importantly, they move heavily into experiential consumption. The data points to a massive surge in regenerative luxury tourism in places like Thailand.
Regenerative tourism is a fascinating concept. It's a departure from just staying in a shiny gated resort and drinking cocktails. The affluent are engaging in high-value, low-volume travel that focuses on sustainability and deep, transformative cultural experiences.
I like what?
Well, they might fund the restoration of a local coral reef during their stay or work directly with local artisans. The luxury isn't the thread count of the sheets. The luxury is the feeling of personal transformation and the knowledge that their capital is actively shaping the local environment for the better.
And for the physical objects they do still desire, the very model of ownership is shifting. We found this incredible detail about fractional ownership through alternative asset platforms like the Timeless app.
This is so interesting.
Instead of buying one classic Ferrari or one incredibly rare vintage watch, people are buying shares of them, like a stock portfolio. They are even buying shares of prehistoric dinosaur bones.
I mean, this is a textbook shift from ontological rarity to epistemological rarity.
Okay, unpack those terms for us.
Sure. Ontological rarity just means something is physically scarce. There are only 10 of these cars in the world. But epistemological rarity means it requires deep, specialized knowledge to even appreciate why it is valuable in the first place. Anyone can look at a gold watch and know it's expensive. But buying a 1/10 share of a specific Triceratops femur from the late Cretaceous period?
You have to know what you're looking at.
That requires education, curation, and a refined understanding of history. They are curating an intellectual identity, not just a physical collection.
But here is where we need to look at the broader reality. While they are curating these subtle, quiet luxury experiences and carefully biohacking their bodies, their broader impact on the world remains incredibly heavily loud.
And this brings us to the Oxfam Carbon Billionaires report.
Right. And it's crucial to view this data impartially, not as a political judgment, but as an economic indicator of sheer scale and consequence.
The report highlights a massive structural disparity, not just in how the wealthy consume, but in how their capital functions in the global ecosystem. Let's break down the mechanics of the emissions. The report notes that a billionaire's personal consumption, the private Gulf streams, the massive super yachts idling in Monaco, the climate control for multiple mega mansions generates personal carbon emissions that can be 1,000 times higher than an ordinary citizen's.
Which is huge on its own. Think about your own carbon footprint. You drive a car to work, maybe you take a commercial flight once or twice a year. Your emissions are directly tied to your personal, physical actions.
Exactly.
But for a billionaire, as the Oxfam data shows, their personal jet is barely a drop in the bucket compared to their investment emissions.
Yes, the investment footprint. When you look at the carbon footprint of the massive corporations, supply chains, and industrial sectors that these individuals own or heavily finance, the scale shifts dramatically.
Yeah.
Those investment emissions can be 1,000,000 times higher than an average person's footprint.
1,000,000 times.
1,000,000. If you own 10% of a massive logistics or energy conglomerate, your deployed capital is effectively emitting millions of tons of carbon on your behalf, around the clock, while you sleep.
It raises an incredibly profound point about control and consequence. For you and me, ordinary citizens, we often have very limited choices. You might have to drive a gas-powered car to work because public transit in your city is inadequate.
Right. You do what you have to do.
But investors operating at this multi-billion-dollar scale possess total, unconstrained optionality.
Their capital choices quite literally dictate the future infrastructure of the planet. If they choose to direct their immense wealth toward fossil fuel expansion rather than green energy innovation, they are effectively shaping the temporal future of the global climate.
The paradox is stark.
It really is. They use their personal capital to perfectly optimize and indefinitely extend their own biological time inside the bunker, while their broader investment choices have a systemic, inescapable impact on the time and resources available to the rest of the planet outside the bunker.
Inside, everything is perfectly controlled, perfectly filtered, perfectly optimized. Outside, their capital is moving markets, shaping the atmosphere, and dictating the future.
Which naturally leads us to the final, perhaps most human question of this entire deep dive.
Let's say you achieve it. You have 90 staff members coordinating your breakfast flawlessly. You have a supersonic jet ready on the tarmac that won't give you jet lag. You have a biologically reversed heart, and you have zero tax liability in a sovereign microstate. Are you actually happy?
That's the $1 million, or I guess $1 billion question.
What is the psychological cost of living a life completely devoid of friction?
The Monaco Mindset Podcast explored this exact psychological territory, dedicating a profound episode to the dark side of luxury. And the insights from the sociologists and wealth psychologists they interviewed are incredibly revealing.
What did they find?
The first major casualty of infinite wealth is almost always trust.
Trust. Yeah, I can see that. When your net worth surpasses the GDP of a small island nation, and you have the ability to literally buy anyone's time, how do you ever truly know who genuinely likes you?
Exactly. The isolation can be profound. The more successful you become, the smaller and more heavily vetted your circle has to be. Every new interaction carries the underlying suspicion, are they talking to me or are they talking to my capital?
It becomes a gilded cage. But beyond the isolation, there's the psychological trap of status and lifestyle inflation. You would naturally assume that reaching the absolute top of the economic pyramid means you can finally relax.
But you can't.
The podcast pointed out that the lifestyle that once felt like ultimate freedom eventually calcifies into a highly structured, relentless obligation.
Let's look back at Brian Johnson for a second. Scientists, ethicists, and critics of his extreme biohacking routine often point out the immense psychological toll of his perfectly optimized life.
Because it's not a relaxed life.
Not at all. He has successfully traded spontaneity, joy, and the simple, messy human pleasure of a shared, unplanned meal for absolute discipline and relentless data tracking. He logs every single calorie, he analyzes every minute fluctuation in his sleep architecture, and he tracks his heart rate variability continuously.
It raises a deep, almost tragic philosophical question. Is the relentless pursuit of biological immortality worth the sacrifice of living freely in the present moment? When every second of your day is dedicated to extending your life, are you actually living it?
It's a heavy thought.
It makes me think of playing a video game where you've input infinite cheat codes. At first, it's the most amazing feeling in the world. You have unlimited health, you have unlimited money, you can spawn any vehicle you want, and you can fly anywhere instantly. You are a god in the machine.
Everyone loves that feeling for the first hour.
Exactly. But very quickly, usually within a few hours, because there is no struggle, because there's absolutely no friction or risk of failure, the game itself starts to feel hollow. It becomes boring.
That is the perfect psychological analogy. Without friction, there is no traction. Reaching one monumental goal simply creates a larger, more abstract goal.
The goalposts just keep moving.
They do. If you buy a $100 million yacht, you feel a sense of triumph for a season. But eventually, you park in a marina in Monaco next to a sovereign wealth fund manager with a $500 million yacht that has a submarine. Suddenly, your triumph feels inadequate. It is the insidious problem of never enough.
And that is the ultimate tragic paradox of the temporal elite. They have conquered money, they have conquered global space, so they turn their vast resources toward conquering time itself.
Yes.
They insulate themselves from inconvenience, from aging, and from the unpredictable messiness of human existence. But in removing all the friction, they risk removing the very textures, the very struggles that give human time its meaning.
The irony is that the friction they spend millions to avoid, the delayed flight, the broken pipe, the unplanned dinner, is often where actual human connection and memory reside.
It's crazy to think about. So we've traced an incredible journey today. We've seen exactly how infinite wealth converts into finite time. We've walked through the massive corporate RCI matrices required just to run a household without a headache.
We've boarded pressurized flying palaces engineered to eliminate biological fatigue.
We've explored the dense, tax-free sanctuary of Monaco, where the elite voluntarily cage themselves to protect their capital. We've dissected the extreme biohacked mornings of the transformation economy, the shift toward quiet luxury and dinosaur bone investments, and finally, we've peeped into the profound isolation that exists at the very top of that mountain.
It's a lot to process.
It is. So what does this all mean for you?
Well, consider this. If the transformation economy continues on its current hyper-funded trajectory, and biotechnology eventually allows the ultra-rich to definitively, permanently purchase biological immortality, time itself will officially transition from a universal constant into the ultimate luxury commodity.
Wow.
When time is no longer the great, unavoidable equalizer of the human experience, what happens to the rest of society who still have to watch the clock run out?
A question that fundamentally changes how we look at the future of inequality. Thank you for joining us on this deep dive. Keep questioning the world around you, and remember that how you spend your time is the ultimate investment.